Welcome everybody to this month's Chamber Chat. We're excited to have you join us. I hope you've been enjoying our Impact Norman emails. They're going out once a month talking about advocacy on all levels. We certainly want you to understand and know that your chamber is fighting for you every step of the way. But in this month's Chamber Chat, I'm real excited to have with us today our Sheriff, Todd Gibson.
Thank you for having me.
You bet, Sheriff. Thanks so much for joining us, and excited to learn about you and also the workings of the department.
All right, let's get into it.
Well, tell me about yourself. I know you're Norman born and bred, but give us a few more details.
Right, so I grew up here in Norman, was born here, and went to Norman Public Schools, went to Cleveland, grew up on primarily Rosewood in Cambridge. That was my stomping grounds, and graduated Norman High in 1992, and have all my family still here. This is where my roots are.
Awesome. Now, you graduated from Norman High in 92, and then what's the next step in your career, and how did you end up being in law enforcement?
So, of course, next step obviously is college. So I went to college, got a degree in corrections and a degree in criminal justice as well, and that's where I met my wife. And we settled here in Norman. I started working in law enforcement in the early 90s, and started at War Acres Police Department up in the Oklahoma City Metro and came to Norman. Norman was always the goal. Lived here in Norman the whole time, and ultimately ended up retiring from Norman Police Department as a captain.
That's awesome. Now, your wife's a Norman girl, but you guys didn't know each other until you were in college.
Right. So my wife, her parents still live out off 48th and Franklin area, so East Norman, and she grew up out there back when it was way out in the sticks. It's not so far out nowadays, but when she was growing up, it was quite a ways out. There was nothing on the east side of Norman when she was growing up, and her mom was a teacher at Moore Public Schools, and so she made the decision when she left Robin Hill to go to Moore Schools, follow her mom, and so she graduated from Moore High School same year. The funny part about that is one of my good friends lived right behind her, and I had been over to his house numerous times and never realized that she lived right there. We never knew each other till college.
It's a small world.
Small world.
My wife and I were in college at the same exact time, same 4 years, and never met until about 7 years later.
Yeah.
So it's funny how that works out
never
sometimes.
Know.
Now, you and your wife, throughout time have expanded your family.
Right. So we have 4 kids. I have one that's a sophomore in college. She plays soccer for Mid-America Christian University up in Oklahoma City. Then I have 3 others, a sophomore, a freshman in high school. Both of them go to CCS High School, and then I have a 7th grader in CCS as well.
That's
my wife
fantastic.
teaches out there. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Now, I know a lot of people with law enforcement, usually there's something that kind of gets them this place, because it's a calling, it's a public service, and you've had a very distinguished career in law enforcement. Talk to us about how you decided to go down this path. Well,
so my dad also worked in the 70s and early 80s. He worked for Norman Police Department and Cleveland County Sheriff's Office, and so at a young age I had a little taste of it. But really, what drove me to the career of law enforcement is I never cared for a bully. I didn't like people picking on other people, and I always wanted to stand up for those who couldn't stand up for themselves, and so this is a great career to do that. I remember from an early age I used to walk back and forth to Cleveland because I lived just down the road, and I was walking home from Cleveland Elementary one day, and I saw that the field is still there. It's off of Sherry, right there by Cleveland, and I saw these 2 boys picking on another kid in the middle of the field, and right then it just came all over me. I didn't like it. I didn't like sitting there watching that kid be bullied, for lack of a better term. And I even at that young age, I don't have a clue what I was thinking at the time. I mean, I was lucky I didn't get beat up, I guess. But I went over to that field and I intervened and I pulled the kid away, and we got out of that situation, thankfully, without getting beat up. But that's kind of the thing that's always driven me, is like, I don't like to watch people get victimized, and I have a hard time just standing by letting other people be mean to people.
So you have a really deep sense of duty and justice, it
Yes,
sounds like.
I do.
After those few years in War Acres, you came to Norman and were there for 21 years or
I
so.
retired at about 21 years in the game, yeah.
And tell us about the different positions. I'm sure after 2+ decades, you probably did a little bit of everything.
Yeah, and that's one of the great things about Norman Police Department. It really develops, if you take advantage of it, really develops you as a career. I started as a guy, lucky to be there, working night shift patrol. Spent many days and nights or long nights at OU football games and down on Campus Corner, working that particular district. But then I was a detective for 5 to 7 years. Worked my way all the way up to a major case detective where I'm investigating homicides and more serious type crimes. Promoted to a first-line supervisor position, went back to night shift, and loved that. It's probably my favorite assignment. Even today, if you were to ask me what was your most favorite assignment in law enforcement, next to being on the SWAT team, it was that night shift first-line supervisor. But ultimately, continued to progress and was a division commander, which is a captain level, and ended up retiring as that.
So you retired. Now, this wasn't like you were going off to hang out on the beach, because you're still, relatively young. And, what happened after retirement?
Law enforcement has a unique way of saying retired. Law enforcement can formally retire on the pension system at 20 years, but no one ever does and hits the beach, right? Because we're all too young at that point. We all started in our early 20s. We're 21, 22 years old. So 20 years in, you're only in your early 40s. A lot of tread left on the tire.
Sure.
And so I thought that my career path had taken me away from law enforcement. And as a division commander or as a captain with Norman, I was in charge of building the investigation center. I worked with a great lady from the city named Linda Price. Many people know her. She's a wonderful person. Worked with her closely and the contractor to oversee the project there at the investigation center on Lindsay Street. Became a certified project manager, and was working with the county on some of their major projects that they have going on. And I think God had a different plan for me, and saw a little further down the road than I could see, and ultimately here I am today as sheriff.
That's awesome. So if you had to look across the state, 77 counties, I assume we've got 77 sheriffs. I'm just going to go and say it now. You've got to be the fittest sheriff out there.
The fittest?
Fittest.
Oh, well.
Yes.
Okay.
So tell us about, you take good care of yourself. I assume that trickles down to your department. Has physical fitness always been a big aspect of your life?
It's funny. It has, and it's always been a deal. If you know me, you know that I'm not going to throw anybody through a wall, right? So I'm not a very, I'm not a super strong or large person, but I always figured that if I'm going to help people, I have to be physically able to do that. And so, also it helps when my wife sees that I'm very stressed. She banishes me to the treadmill.
Okay, good.
And so it's not uncommon for her to say, "Hey, you need to go get a couple miles in on the treadmill, then come back and we'll talk about it," because it's just always been a source of stress relief and a way of just working in a high stress job.
Well, you set a good example for the rest of us.
Well,
so that's good.
Thanks.
Well, let's talk about the department a little bit.
Okay.
You've got, Cleveland County is a thriving, growing county, really diverse. We have rural, we have urban, we've got suburban, a lot of people to take care of and watch over. Talk to us about the makeup of your department.
Yeah, so Cleveland County is a great county. Obviously, I'm biased. It's the best one in the state of Oklahoma. Third largest county. We have Oklahoma City. We have Moore. Of course, Norman is the county seat. So we have about 200 employees total at the sheriff's office, and we are involved in all kinds of different service opportunities to the community. So obviously one of our biggest things is we run the county jail, and everybody knows where that is, up by the York plant. They're off Franklin Road. We process through anywhere from 10 to 11,000 people a year through that facility. Wow. From Norman, Moore, Oklahoma City, anywhere throughout the county. And then we also have patrol, and our patrol deputies, they primarily focus on rural areas and service 911 service delivery to the rural areas. But then We have a whole section of warrants and a whole section of civil process, and these civil deputies, they work really hard, probably in Norman more in Oklahoma City more than any other place in the county, or is where our civil deputies work, doing civil process service and lockouts. Any landlord is very familiar with the Cleveland County Sheriff's Office. And finally, we have about 15 to 20 personnel that work out of the courthouse, doing courthouse security, working with the judges, judicial protection, and different things like that. We just had that opioid trial.
Yeah.
Got a lot of national attention for that, and that puts a lot of a strain on our resources, but we're happy to do it and have great opportunities to work with the justice system through the courthouse.
In Cleveland County, we have a lot of different law enforcement agencies. Of course, besides our municipal police departments, you've got tribal governments in here, you've got the university police. Maybe share with us what it's like to work with so many cross-section of law enforcement. How does that work? Are you guys able to work together?
Yeah, so I've traveled all over the country in the law enforcement realms and had opportunities to talk with leadership from a lot of different law enforcement agencies. And I would tell you that I really feel like whether it's Chief Foster, Chief Woolen, with the OU Police Department, we have a very unique cooperation model that we have here in Cleveland County. And I joke sometimes that citizens here in Cleveland County might be a little bit spoiled to the high level of service that they get, but they deserve it. But really going across the country, it's not the norm how we cooperate and get along with each other.
That's great. Well, I think it says a lot, and there's not turf battles. We never see that in the paper, right? I mean,
Right.
I really see a high degree of cooperation, and I think that says a lot about the leadership. So
We're all looking to do the right thing and do good for our community.
yeah.
Right.
Now, our local police department, they're primarily funded through sales tax, whether it be sales tax, that's remitted, or in Norman's case, the public safety sales tax. They have a dedicated portion. Maybe share with us a little bit about how the county sheriff's department is funded.
So currently, we are funded at the county level through ad valorem or property tax. There's 117 mills, which gets really complex really fast, but we take about 10 of those. And the sheriff's office has about a $14 million a year budget. Most of that is through is the operation of the county jail, and a good part of that funding also comes from sales tax. We have a quarter-cent county sales tax, which goes in conjunction with the property tax that is also collected to operate the sheriff's office.
Okay, great. Now, speaking of that quarter% sales tax,
Right.
That's going to be expiring early next year.
Right.
Tell us about this proposal that the voters are going to be able to consider in November.
Well, you used the word early, which I'm glad that you did use that word, because it is early. The commissioners have worked to pay the bonds off. So the original quarter-cent sales tax was put into place to help build a new jail, which was done in 2012. In 2014, the commissioners went back and restructured it, and will be paying the bonds off about 10 years early, 9 to 10 years early. So it'll be about $17 million in savings as just being good stewards of the money.
Sure.
But that being said, the jail each year has multiple contracts, and they're expensive contracts, and it's expensive to run a jail. And we don't want to get into a situation where we have a falling down facility. Right now we have the best facility in the state of Oklahoma. We provide the best service in the state of Oklahoma, but that takes money. And so we'd like to reduce the quarter-cent sales tax and down to an eighth, so cut it in half and continue a public safety sales tax to support different things like the jail and the sheriff's office operations.
That's awesome. Now, you guys have been, I think, a leader in justice reform initiatives and what you're doing at the jail to really help somebody that's not their last stop.
Right.
This is I'll just call it reform. You're really trying to reform somebody and get them back on their feet so they can get back into society. I know a lot of that's happening now, but there's, if I understand it right, part of the initiative that we'll be voting on in November takes into account some of that also. Is that right?
Correct, November 12th. And so, like I said, we process through 10 to 11,000 people. To hold one person for a year, it costs $20,000 per person. And so you do the math on that, it's quite a bit of money if you hold them for a full year. And most of the people at the county jail will be back into our community. They're not going to go to the prison. They're going to go back out to the community. And so what we want to do is invest in them through programs while we have them to fix some of the problems that had caused them to get into the jail. But also with this sales tax on November 12th, one of the things that we want to do is start to look at the Juvenile Justice Center, the Couch Center, and look at how we can improve that facility. It is built in 1991, and quite frankly, it's not at the level that Cleveland County deserves. It's not at the level that the residents in Norman or any other community of our great county deserve. And so this would be an opportunity for us to renovate the juvenile center and really invest in the kids. And so we can create more of a therapeutic and educational environment, and also have the secure facility. And that takes a unique compromise there with a lot of money. And this sales tax would also help us remodel and reinvigorate the efforts out there at the Couch Center so we can provide better service to the juveniles, and hopefully they don't come to the county jail.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that, how you guys are being thoughtful, thinking on down the road, and really starting this process where it begins with our youth. Nobody's a throwaway citizen, right?
No one's a throwaway at all.
Let's invest in our people early, and hopefully that'll deter them and get them on the right track to where they won't end up in the county detention.
Right. At the sheriff's office, we talk daily. And, our vision is we believe in inspiring positive success by transforming one life at a time, and we constantly talk about how can we transform somebody's life. And there's no better way to attack crime and community issues than going and reaching kids in the early stages before they get deep into the criminal justice system. Let's go meet them where they're at. Let's go try to intervene and get the reforms necessary to give them the resources to be successful.
Awesome. Tell me that mission again. What is
so our mission is we courageously protect and compassionately serve. Our goal, or our vision statement, is we believe in inspiring positive success by transforming one life at a time.
Awesome.
Yeah, what's cool about that, you don't hear anything about crime fighting. You don't hear anything about locking people up. You don't hear anything about writing tickets. That's not what we do. Those are tasks, but really what we do is we are a service entity, the sheriff's office. We provide service, and we seek to transform people's lives. And that can be just something as simple as a smile, a handshake, changing a tire, or sometimes when we take you to jail, we have opportunity to transform your life in some positive manner.
That's awesome. Transformative public service.
Yes.
I think that's a great place for us to end
better
this
than I did.
conversation.
Yeah.
No. You got it down. But Sheriff, thank you so much for spending some time with us.
Thank you for having me.
I hope that you will relay our appreciation from the business community to your staff for what they do to serve our entire county. You guys are professionals. Men and women are professionals out there. You make us a lot of who we are, and we really appreciate that. I know that from the business community, we appreciate that greatly.
Well, thank you.
So thank you, and thanks for being with us today on Chamber Chat.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Well, guys, and thank you so much for tuning in today. We appreciate the time that you've invested in us. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. And again, I hope you're enjoying our monthly emails, Impact Norman. Please continue to tune in to these videos and read the emails. We hope to bring you timely, informative articles and tidbits of information that help you continue to make an impact in our community. Thanks again, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon.